Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Naruto Was the Child of the Moon in Percy Jackson, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Mount Olympus. Artemis sat on the couch in her temple. She had been waiting for the right moment in order to claim Naruto as her son. She decided that today was the best time to do so. She looked at the screen. She saw her son quickly dispatch a hellhound about to attack his friend. Though, she was disappointed that her son wasn't using a bow and arrow for himself. On the screen, she saw that all the campers were staring at Naruto. Here goes nothing, she said to herself. She closed her eyes, focusing her energy on her son. All around her, she felt spikes of energy coming towards her temple. The other gods have already learned of this. Definitely, they were coming over to ask her what happened. The first to arrive was Apollo, her twin brother. He was screaming outside her temple, "Little sis, why didn't you tell me?" Next to arrive was Aphrodite. She was also screaming, "It's finally happened. Tell me." One by one all the other gods began to arrive, even Hera, surprisingly. Now there was a commotion outside her temple. Artemis went out to meet them. I know. I have a lot to explain, but there are a few others would want to hear this. She snapped her fingers. In a flash of bright light, the hunters of Artemis appeared in Olympus just outside her temple. When the hunters came to, they realized that they were not in their camp anymore. They looked around and saw the gods, including their mistress, present. As soon as they saw Artemis, they started to swarm her. They were yelling and protesting about what they just saw. "Girls, enough," she said. "I will explain myself." She took a deep breath before saying, "First of all, Aphrodite, it's not what you think." Aphrodite groaned. "As you are aware, there is a young boy from the elemental nations right now in Camp Half-Blood who I claimed as my son. As you know, I seldom visit this world to hunt some of their animals that are not even found in this world. In my first visit, I sensed these masses of energy in the form of huge creatures. The tailed beasts," Hermes said. Artemis nodded. "During one of my visits, I decided to see these animals for myself and hunt them down. I appeared in a forest near some high walls of a village. Surprisingly, I sensed one of those beasts inside the village, so I disguised myself as one of the maidens and entered the village. I tracked down the beast down in a house. I entered the house unnoticed, but I couldn't see the fox anywhere. All I could see were humans inside." She paused for a bit. "Oddly, though, I could sense the beast coming from the woman in the group. I sensed that there was a seal keeping the beast at bay. So, I decided to enter the seal myself. Once inside, I discovered that the beast inside the seal was a fox, a huge fox with 9 tails." Gasps were heard from the hunters. What I didn't expect as well was that the woman was carrying a child. The fox wasn't too happy about this. In fact, he was bitter for being sealed inside humans and used as a weapon. But that's not what I was explaining. Anyway, we had a chat, so I stayed there for quite a while. I didn't know that the fox, inside the seal, was influencing how the child would look like. During my time in the seal, my essence was transferred to the child, just like the fox. So, that's why, Athena said. Yes, what he inherited from me is there, but it's subtle. I'm surprised you noticed. You won't even notice it if you don't pay close attention. So, in a way, you could say he's my child too. But, why is he here? One of the hunters asked. 13 years later, I went back to the elemental nations to hunt again. I was following my prey through a forested area. I kept following it until it led me into a waterfall with 2 big statues on both sides. I could see that a big fight has recently occurred in the area. Below the cliff, I noticed an orange figure lying on the ground. I decided to investigate. At first, I was disappointed because the white figure I saw was a boy. Groans could be heard from the hunters. I studied him before going to leave him there to die. I decided against that idea when I noticed subtle auburn streaks in his hair. There were whisker marks on his cheeks which reminded me of the fox I hunted in the past. When I knelt down to touch him, I felt my essence coursing through him. I sensed him as the same child that the woman I saw, all those years ago. Because of that, I decided to take him in. Won't they be looking for him? I went back to the area where I found him and saw a man looking for him. I approached him and talked to him. I learned about his horrible past, which explained the bitterness and resentment the boy was harboring. We went back to the village and I talked to the village leader, who surprisingly was a woman. Basically, after some tests, they concluded that we were related, and they allowed him to come home with me after making necessary arrangements. And he's a Jinchuriki, right? Athena asked. Artemis nodded. Father's going to be paranoid about him again. He's always like that, Hera said. But, little sis, Apollo said, changing the subject. You still didn't answer my question. Why didn't you tell me? Because, I know you would overreact like that as usual. Artemis replied. Ares also spoke up. The little punk ain't bad. Could make a good challenge. Artemis shot him a murderous look. Don't you dare. Aphrodite had scowl on her face. I thought you took my advice about finding someone. Artemis shook her head. Never, Aphrodite, never. You know I have an oath. Aphrodite's face lit up when an idea lit up in her mind. She squealed, I'm going to give him a great love life. She just looked at Aphrodite and sighed. I knew it, she thought. She looked over to her hunters. They were shuffling nervously at their seats. Clearly they didn't know how to take this all in. Girls, she said, getting the girls' attention. What do you feel about this? Zoe spoke up for the group. My lady, we are relieved that you have still kept your oath. We really thought that you have broken your oath when you claimed him as your son. As for your son, he being a boy already puts him in a bad light. We just don't know. We have to meet him ourselves for us to judge him properly. Artemis nodded, accepting their answers. Do you all feel this way? She asked. The hunters nodded. I think this is much excitement for one day. I believe it's time for us to leave. Hera said. We came here for an explanation and we were given one. Plus, after Poseidon's claiming, Zeus would probably be in a bad mood. One by one the gods walked towards her and congratulated her before going out on their own ways. The last one to leave was Apollo and Hephaestus. I was not expecting for me to have a nephew from me sister, so I'll try to keep an eye on him. Apollo said before leaving. Thanks, Artemis replied. Apollo patted her head, treating her as his little sister, much to Artemis' great dislike. Hephaestus handed Artemis a ninja pouch similar to that of Naruto's. Here, I just finished your order. I believe I understand who it is for now. He said. Thank you. Anytime. After that, Hephaestus made his way back to his forges. Artemis turned to her hunters. Thank you for understanding, girls. I know this is all of a sudden for you. One of the hunters spoke up. Since he had inherited some parts of you, he may not be so bad. There were murmurs of agreement from the other hunters. Though he will have to prove himself to us. Zoe said. Thank you, girls. She said gratefully. She then clicked her fingers and the hunters disappeared in a flash of light. Camp Half-Blood. Naruto sat on a bench in the center of the cabins looking at his mother's cabin. Just a few minutes ago, Artemis claimed him as her son, though it is still unclear to him. Beside him was his best friend, Percy, who, just like him, was claimed by his father. All around them, the campers were staring at them. They were staring at Naruto like he might be a mistake, even though Chiron already told them that the gods don't make mistakes when it comes to claiming. For Percy, many were shocked that Poseidon claimed him as a son. This meant that Poseidon has broken the pact between the big three. It definitely was a bad sign. So, I guess we aren't roommates anymore. Naruto said, breaking the silence. I guess not, Percy replied. Naruto looked at the campers who were staring at them. The last time he was stared at like this was when he was a little kid. Thankfully, these stares were not hateful stares, unlike the villagers of the Hidden Leaf. And unlike the last time, he was not alone. Naruto continued to talk to his friend so he could try to ignore the stares. Taking in the moonlight that night definitely made him feel better. Chiron trotted towards them. Those were some surprising claims. The whole camp has still been reeling from that. Now, though, we have to move you into your parents' cabin. He said. Percy, you will go to cabin 3. He said, pointing towards the cabin that looked like it was made of sea rock. He turned to Naruto, and you Naruto, you will go to cabin 8. He said hesitantly, pointing to the cabin glowing in the moonlight. Now go get your things from cabin 11. Percy and Naruto went on their way. They didn't forget to thank Luke for helping them on their first days and for taking them in when they didn't know the godly parent yet. On their way back, Chiron pulled Naruto aside. We have a little problem about your cabin. The hunters of Artemis come over once in a while, and they stay at the cabin when they are here. Naruto thought, is there any chance that any of the cabins would take me in while I am here? That should be acceptable, just make sure to ask permission from the head counselor. It would be acceptable if you make an offering during meal times to the god's cabin you want to stay at. Naruto nodded. Chiron looked around and saw that the other campers were still outside their cabins and staring at them. All right everyone, he said. Go inside your cabins now. It is way past your curfew. Well, I guess I will see you in the morning, Chiron. Chiron smiled and trotted away. Naruto looked at Percy and said, well, I guess I will see you tomorrow too. I'm still bummed out that we aren't roommates anymore. Well, it can't be helped. Percy took a look at door for a while and entered. I guess it's my turn. Naruto thought as he stared at the doors of the glowing cabin. Naruto thought that after Chiron ordered the campers to enter their cabins, they stopped staring at him. He noticed many campers were still looking out their windows to see if he would get vaporized or get turned into a jackalope. He sighed. Naruto, then, entered the cabin. The others watched with bated breath waiting for something to happen. A few seconds later, silence permeated through the night. Nothing happened. The campers then called it a night. Inside the cabin, the first thing he noticed was the scent. He picked up the scent of the outdoors, just like the forests he loved to camp out in. It reminded him of the forests outside the Leaf Village. A smile crept up to his face. He looked around. The walls were painted dark green with silver vine-like designs going along the top and bottom of the walls. Painted along the walls were pictures of different animals from bears, deer, and wolves. Alongside the animals were the images of people wearing long hoods and cloaks and carrying bows and arrows. He saw that there were around 20 beds that had silver duvets and pillows covering them. Beside each bed was a set of drawers where the hunters could leave their equipment. Where do I sleep? He voiced out his thoughts. He definitely didn't want to sleep on the beds that a bunch of man-hating girls. At the moment he spoke up, a bright light shone in the backside of the cabin. When the light died down, a door formed on the back wall. Whoa, Naruto said. He went straight for the door and opened it. When the door was opened, it revealed a room. The room contained a pair of cabinets on the left side of the room. Facing the cabinets, there was a big bed, more than big enough for him. Beside the bed, there was a nightstand with drawers and a lamp on top of it. On top of the bed, there was a ninja pouch that looked like his own. On the bed's headboard, there was a note stuck on it just like when he first came into this world. He went over and sat on the bed. He plucked the note from the head and read it. Dear Naruto, I know you are surprised to find out that you are my son, but please know that despite my reputation, you are the exception. So do not think that I don't care about you. The main cabin is used by my hunters, so I had this part of the cabin specifically made for you. I know that if you stayed with my hunters, they would feel uncomfortable if they have to share with a boy. But, you have every right to stay in this cabin as my hunters. However, I have been told that your apartment back in the elemental nations has always been a disaster. I just want to remind you that you should keep this room tidy. There will be cabin inspections every afternoon. Anyways, I heard you got a Minotaur horn after your battle with the Minotaur. I have provided you with a cabinet for you to place your spoils of war. Treat it like a trophy case. Also, I heard that you don't feel like using a sword as your weapon. In the pouch, you will see kunai just like those you use back at home. The difference is that these kunai are made with a combination of chakra metal and celestial bronze. These kunai are enchanted to return to the pouch after a few seconds so you don't have to worry about running out. Lastly, this is not the right time for us to meet. Just know that until the time we meet, look up to the sky at night. I will always be watching you under the shine of the moonlight. Love, Mom. P.S. Why don't you try using a bow and arrow? I am sure you have discovered that you have inherited marksmanship from me. Naruto smiled. He looked up and saw the trophy case his mother was talking about. He saw the Minotaur horn already in there and a tooth lying beside it. He figured it came from the hellhound he fought a while back. Beside the trophy case, there was a cabinet. Inside there was his old jumpsuit and a green flak jacket. There were also different clothes that hung beside it. He smiled and wiped a stray tear formed in his eye. Since he had been claimed, a voice was nagging him in his head. It had him thinking if his mother really wanted him since he knew his mother's reputation. But, seeing this, the nagging voice was silenced. He knows that his mother loves him. Sitting on the bed, he let out a huge yawn. Definitely, the games he played today and the training he did in the morning were catching up to him. He was feeling tired. He took a shower and went to bed with a big smile on his face. Mount Olympus. In the throne room, sitting on head of the Olympian thrones was a man wearing a dark blue pin-striped suit with long dark gray hair and electric blue eyes. This is Zeus, god of the sky and king of the Olympians. He was definitely in a foul mood. He just learned that Poseidon too had broken his oath, and he was almost certain that the child has stolen his weapon. Also on his mind, there was Artemis' son. Despite the ancient laws, she still brought her son here into the world. Plus, he feared the beast that was sealed inside of him. He was paranoid that the boy with the help of the beast had enough power to challenge him. He could have smitten the boy the moment he was here in this world. But, he didn't want to risk the beast rampaging in New York if he did. Also, he didn't want to anger his mother, Artemis. Just then, another man entered the throne room. The man had black hair, a deep tan and sea green eyes. He was wearing Birkenstocks, khaki Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. This was Poseidon, god of the sea. The moment he entered, the tension in the air thickened. The two started arguing about Poseidon's son stealing Zeus' weapon. All around the world, thunderstorms, earthquake, and storms hit various countries answering to the anger of the two brothers. The next morning, Naruto stretched as he exited the cabin. As usual, he woke up earlier than the other campers. Though he woke up so early, he still felt refreshed after having one of the best sleeps in his life. The bed his mother gave him was definitely very, very soft and comfy. He went around camp for his usual jog. Towards the end of his jog, just before breakfast, the other campers were already awake. As he was going for a shower, he noticed that many of the girls were staring at him with blushes on their faces. This is going to take some getting used to, he thought. After his shower, the conch horn blew right on schedule. Campers all around the camp made their way to the dining pavilion. Naruto went to his new table. He will definitely have to get used to eating by himself. In the past few days, he had people eating with him at the Hermes table. Now, being the only son of Artemis, he was alone on the table. After the usual offerings, everyone had a hearty meal. For Naruto, well, his appetite never failed to amuse the other campers. They watched as plate after plate stacked on his table. Despite being alone on the table, it looked like a whole cabin sat on the table after he finished. After breakfast, he caught up to Percy. It's sad that we have to spend breakfast alone, Naruto said to his friend. Yeah, just when I thought I was fitting in, Percy replied with a sad look on his face. Naruto understood his friend. The other campers were avoiding him now like he had some kind of disease. It reminded him of the villages in the Hidden Leaf when he was young. He patted his friend on the shoulder. Cheer up, Percy. Think of it this way, at least you have a whole cabin to yourself. Percy's face lit up. Yeah, sleeping at night doesn't kill my back anymore. Both of them laughed. As the two walked, thunder boomed in the distance. Grover had told them that bad weather never found its way into camp, yet the clouds above camp darkened and the ocean was getting wild, with the waves reaching meters high. The duo was looking up at the sky when their satyr friend made his way over to them. Hey Percy, Grover called out. Mr. D wants to see you. Why? Percy asked. He wants to kill. I mean, I'd better let him tell you. Grover replied. Naruto did a double take on what Grover told Percy. Wait, did you say kill? No. Grover stuttered. Grover's expression told him that he was hiding something. If Percy is in trouble in any way, I'm coming too. Naruto offered. Why you can't? Mr. D specifically asked to bring Percy only. Oh, Naruto said. Oh well, I guess I'll see you later, Percy. Grover then left with Percy leaving Naruto alone. A few minutes later, Naruto was sitting on a bench near the cabins. It started to rain. The rain clouds looming over the camp didn't pass around as Grover had said. He sat there thinking. The satyr's words didn't leave his mind. He wants to kill, I mean, I'd better let him tell you. Grover's words were spoken in his mind. He was worried that his friend might be in some kind of trouble with Mr. D. He was told about the pact of the Big Three after World War II. He was not supposed to be born. He thought that Mr. D was calling him because of this. This made him curious. A grin made its way into his face. I will find out what is going on, he thought. He stood up and made his way to the big house. When he got to the big house, he noticed that Percy and Mr. D were not there anymore. Only Chiron and Grover were visible in the area, sitting on his fake wheelchair, cards in hand and chewing Coke cans respectively. Visible is the operative word here. He sensed someone else was in the area, only he couldn't see where he or she was. He tried to pinpoint where this other person was. When he was almost certain where he or she was, he put up an illusion and went in. As fast as he got in, he got out just as quick. Struggling in his arms was an invisible human-shaped mass he couldn't see but could hear and feel. Shush, he said in a whisper. You don't want us to be found out, do you? The invisible form in his arms stopped struggling and took of something on its head. How did you know I was there? The form, who was revealed to be Annabeth, asked, also in a hushed tone. Oh hey Annabeth, he greeted first. I sensed you skulking around the area. Annabeth frowned. So, what are you doing there, Annie? Just the same as you, Annabeth whispered. And, don't call me Annie. Whatever you say, Annie. Annabeth growled at Naruto. So, where's Percy? Naruto asked. Oh, he went up to the oracle to get a prophecy for his quest. What? He asked a bit loudly but still made sure both of them weren't heard. He couldn't even defend himself here at camp. Wow, way to have confidence on your best friend. Annabeth commented. I'm just worried about him, he said. So, what's it about? Basically, Zeus is missing his master bolt, his symbol of power, and he's blaming Percy for it. Naruto remembered the stories about Zeus' weapon, the first weapon made by the Cyclopes for the war against the Titans. He remembered that Zeus used it to shear the top off Mount Etna and hurl Kronos from his throne. Naruto sighed. Let me guess, Zeus is paranoid that his brother, Percy's dad, is plotting to overthrow him. And, he's blaming Percy even though we were together all this time and we have never been to Olympus. Pretty much. Annabeth shrugged. Why am I not surprised? Naruto sighed again. Was there even a time when these two were not fighting? Annabeth just nodded. Just then, they heard footsteps approaching the area. It was Percy. He had just finished his audience with the oracle. He sat down on his chair by the pinnacle table and slumped. Grover had his fingers crossed like he was wishing for something to happen. Chiron asked. Well, she said. A few minutes earlier, the big house attic. Percy thought that seeing his best friend be half-goat was the weirdest thing he had so far. Damn, was he wrong. When he accepted the quest, Chiron told him it's his time to visit the oracle. He told him to go up to the attic. For a moment, he felt a little fear. He remembered that apparition he saw looking at him in his first day at camp. Assuming you are still sane, Chiron's words rang in his head. He was in the attic. All around him, there was stuff that he described as Greek hero junk stored there. In the other corner of the room, he saw the thing he thought he saw as an apparition in his first day awake at camp. Getting up from its stool was a mummy. There was green mist coming out from its mouth in the form of tendrils sending chills up his spine. The mummy was not wrapped in bandages as pop culture has popularized. It was a shriveled human female body. She was wearing a tie-dyed sundress, with lots of beaded necklaces, and a headband over long black hair. Her face was thin and leathery over her skull, and her eyes were glassy white slits, as if the real eyes had been replaced by marbles. In short, she'd been dead a long, long time. He shook himself back to reality when he heard the mummy spoke. I am the spirit of Delphi, speaker of the prophecies of Phoebus Apollo, slayer of the mighty Python. Approach, seeker, and ask. The oracle spoke in his head. Fear coursed through his body. His instincts were telling him to answer, no thanks, wrong door, just looking for the bathroom. But, he gathered his courage and asked, what is my destiny? The green mist around the oracle swirled more thickly and changes into Gabe and his drinking buddies. The oracle used everyone present in the image to say, you shall go west, and face the god who has turned. You shall find what was stolen, and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. And you shall fail to save what matters most, in the end. Present. Percy slumped on his chair at the pinnacle table after he got down from the attic. Well, Chiron asked. Percy recounted the lines of the prophecy as stated to him by the oracle. Though, he left out the last line of the prophecy fearing what it might pertain to. Anything else? Chiron asked, clearly unsatisfied. No, that's about it. Percy lied. Naruto, who was hiding near the area with Annabeth, rolled his eyes. He's definitely lying. Naruto whispered to Annabeth. Annabeth just shook her head. He left out the last line. Chiron studied Percy's face. Very well, Percy. But know this, the oracle's words often have double meanings. Don't dwell on them too much. The truth is not always clear until events come to pass. Okay, Percy said, anxious to change topics. So where do I go? Who's this god in the west? Think, Percy, Chiron said. If Zeus and Poseidon weaken each other in a war, who stands to gain? Somebody else who wants to take over. I guessed. Naruto face-palmed and whispered loud enough for only Annabeth to hear. It looks like he doesn't listen to your lectures, or maybe he doesn't know anything of Greek mythology at all. He's a seaweed brain, Annabeth commented. Naruto thought back to Mrs. Dodds. She was definitely looking for something, but she was asking Percy. Then, there was this hellhound who was somehow summoned from right inside camp. It couldn't be a coincidence. Mrs. Dodds and the hellhound attacking Percy. He muttered. Naruto listened back to the conversation. Percy must go to the underworld, find the Master Bolt and reveal the truth. At the mention of the underworld, one thing hit Naruto and Percy's mind. Aunt Sally, Mom, they thought. Naruto saw a chance for him to redeem himself. He failed to protect Sally when they were attacked by the Minotaur. By one way or another, he saw this as his way to get him back, whatever it takes, even to fight Hades. He took a look back towards them. Percy looked like he was planning to do something stupid. He couldn't blame him. He knew Percy hasn't gotten over the loss of his mom yet. Grover, well, he started trembling and eating the pinochle cards like potato chips. Percy spoke up. Look, if we know it's Hades, why can't we just tell the other gods? Zeus or Poseidon could go down to the underworld and bust some heads. Suspecting and knowing are not the same, Chiron said. Besides, even if the other gods suspect Hades, and I imagine Poseidon does, they couldn't retrieve the bolt themselves. Gods cannot cross each other's territories except by invitation. That is another ancient rule. Heroes, on the other hand, have certain privileges. They can go anywhere, challenge anyone, as long as they're bold enough and strong enough to do it. No god can be held responsible for a hero's actions. Why do you think the gods always operate through humans? You're saying I'm being used. Percy answered. I'm saying it's no accident Poseidon has claimed you now. It's a very risky gamble, but he's in a desperate situation. He needs you. Chiron corrected. Naruto turned to Annabeth. Hey Annabeth, why were you still hoping that Percy was a son of Zeus after the bathroom incident? Shut up. Annabeth answered. It was wishful thinking, okay. I was always with him back at Yancy, and it was always the water that answers to him. Was he a seaweed brain even back then? Naruto chuckled softly. Yep, he always tends to get into trouble. Annabeth let out a muffled laugh. I think by definition, we demigods are magnets to trouble. I guess you're right. Both of them turned back to Chiron, Percy and Grover's conversation. Annabeth perked up when she heard Percy say, gee, who else would be stupid enough to volunteer for a quest like this? Annabeth jumped out of their hiding spot and ran to the three, which startled Grover, who was already jumpy. I've been waiting a long time for a quest, seaweed brain, she said. Athena is no fan of Poseidon, but if you're going to save the world, I'm the best person to keep you from messing up. Naruto sighed and walked out of his hiding place. Hold it, Naruto said. Chiron, Percy and Grover's widened their eyes in surprise. It was Percy who voiced out. Naruto, where were you? In plain sight. It's a ninja trick. Plus, I caught Annabeth here skulking around, so I wasn't alone, Naruto said. Annabeth blushed when Naruto said that last part. Shut up. She blurted out. I had to be a part of it. Chiron, they're going to need all the help they can get. Naruto told Chiron. Someone has to keep Percy from causing trouble. Hey, Percy protested. Naruto, I understand your concern for Percy, but, Chiron said. Naruto insisted. But Chiron, they're new to this. Even genin in the elemental nations don't go out on missions like this. Chiron sighed. Very well, Naruto. This afternoon, we will take you as far as the bus terminal in Manhattan. After that, you are on your own. He explained to the whole group. Lightning flashed. Rain poured down on the meadows that were never supposed to have violent weather. No time to waste, Chiron said. I think you should all get packing. Later that day, after their meeting at the big house, the questers went on their separate ways to pack. Although, Naruto and Percy had a problem since they lost their luggage in the attack of the Minotaur. Fortunately, Grover found them backpacks. Naruto sat in his room. He packed in the clothes his mother had given him the night before. It didn't take it long to pack. He already knew what to get since he has been through this to countless times to before. As he was finishing, he saw his green flak jacket hanging on the leftmost side of the closet. He stared at the green flak jacket he got after the old man Hokage died. He remembered the friends he left in the Hidden Leaf. He remembered the missions he had, especially with the ones with Team 7. Then, he remembered Sasuke. He had promised Sakura to save him from the darkness, but right now he didn't know if he would be able to do it. One thing at a time, I guess. He shook himself out of his melancholy. Oh yeah, I got a mission. I have to get it together. Eventually, he plucked the flak jacket from his closet, put it on and went out. Naruto met up with his teammates at the camp store to get the supplies they would need. He was supposed to get some mortal money from the store, but he had some money left from what his mother has been giving him. However, he still got some golden drachmas for non-mortal transactions, as Chiron had put it. Finally, he got some ambrosia and nectar for emergency purposes. After that, they waved goodbye to the other campers, took one last look at the strawberry fields, the ocean, and the big house, then hiked up Half-Blood Hill to the tall pine tree. Chiron was waiting for them in his wheelchair. Next to him, there was a man who you could only describe as a surfer. He was wearing a chauffeur's uniform. According to Grover, the guy was the camp's head of security. Supposedly, he had eyes all over his body. His attire today covered his extra eyes, so those only on his hands, face and neck were seen. This is Argus, Chiron introduced. He will drive you into the city, and, well, keep an eye on things. That was a horrible pun, Chiron. Naruto commented. Chiron shrugged. It was worth a try. Just then footsteps were heard approaching them. It was Luke who came running up the hill, carrying a pair of basketball shoes. Hey, he panted. Glad I caught you. Annabeth hid behind Naruto. Just wanted to say good luck, Luke told me. And I thought, maybe you could use these. He handed Percy a pair of normal-looking basketball shoes. Well, they thought it was normal, until Luke shouted, Maya. White bird's wings sprouted out of the heels, startling Percy so much, that he dropped them. The shoes flapped around on the ground until the wings folded up and disappeared. Awesome, Grover said. Cool, Naruto chimed in. They remind me of the sandals your dad wears in the pictures. Yeah, they're a gift of Dad. Luke explained. They served me well when I was on a quest. His expression turned sad. Of course, I don't use them much these days. Percy was speechless. Not only did Luke come and say goodbye to him and the group, but he also came and gave him a magic item. Hey, man, Percy said. Thanks. Listen, Percy. Luke looked uncomfortable. A lot of hopes are riding on you. So just, kill some monsters for me, okay? He turned to Naruto, and Naruto, keep an eye on Percy for me, will ya? He shook Naruto and Percy's hands. He patted Grover's head between his horns, and then called out to Annabeth, to come out from hiding to give her a hug. She looked like she might pass out. After Luke was gone, Percy commented, you're hyperventilating. I'm not. Annabeth protested. Percy realized something. You let him capture the flag instead of you, didn't you? That definitely pulled a string. Oh. Why do I want to go anywhere with you, Percy? She said as she stomped down other side of the hill, where a white SUV waited on the shoulder of the road. Argus followed, jingling his car keys. Percy picked up the flying shoes and had a sudden bad feeling. He looked at Chiron. I won't be able to use these, will I? Not unless you want to be deep-fried by the Lord of the Sky. Naruto told his friend. Percy looked at his friend with a frown on his face. What? Just saying. Naruto said. Chiron shook his head. Luke meant well, Percy. But taking to the air, that would not be wise for you. Percy nodded, clearly disappointed, but then he got an idea. Hey, Grover, you want a magic item? His eyes lit up. Me. Pretty soon, Naruto and Percy had laced the sneakers over Grover's fake feet. Maya, he shouted. He got off the ground okay, but then fell over sideways so his backpack dragged through the grass. The winged shoes kept bucking up and down like tiny broncos. Practice, Chiron called after him. You just need practice. Ah. Grover went flying sideways down the hill like a possessed lawn-mower, heading toward the van. Before the boys could follow, Chiron caught Percy's arm, causing both of them to stop. I should have trained you better, Percy, he said. If only I had more time. Hercules, Jason, they all got more training. That's okay, Chiron, Naruto said. That's why I'm here. Percy looked bummed out. Though, it was not about the lack of training. He envied Annabeth and Luke for receiving items from the godly parents. I just wish. Percy stopped himself. He didn't want to sound like a spoiled brat. What am I thinking? Chiron cried. I can't let you get away without this. Naruto, you too. He added. He pulled pens from his coat pocket and handed them to the two boys. They were ordinary disposable ballpoint pens with black ink. One had a removable cap. The other had a button to press to reveal the ball point. Gee, Percy said. Thanks. These look like the pens from the museum, Chiron. Chiron nodded. Nice of you to notice, my boy. He first turned to Percy. Percy, that's a gift from your father. I've kept it for years, not knowing you were who I was waiting for. But the prophecy is clear to me now. You are the one. Could this be? He thought. He took off the cap, and the pen grew longer and heavier in his hand. In half a second, he was holding the same bronze sword he held in the museum. Of all the swords in camp, it was the first weapon that actually felt balanced in his hand. The sword has a long and tragic history that we need not go into, Chiron told me. Its name is Anaklusmos. Riptide, Percy translated as he studied his blade. Chiron nodded, then turned to Naruto. Naruto, that's a gift from your mother. You can imagine my surprise when I received them. I only know they were made for you. I was also told that there was a mix of chakra metal on the blade. The blonde pressed the button at the end of the pen. The pen elongated in his hand. The pen, then, became the same kunai he used to kill the Fury. Naruto examined the blade. He noticed there were markings on the hilt. Those markings, Chiron said. I don't understand them. They are definitely not Greek. They are seals, Naruto said. Unfortunately, I don't know what they are for. You will find out someday. Chiron said. Use them only for emergencies, Chiron said, and only against monsters. No hero should harm mortals unless absolutely necessary, of course, but Percy's sword wouldn't harm them. In your case, Naruto, the chakra metal on the blade would still injure them. What do you mean it wouldn't harm mortals? How could it not? Percy asked. Your blades are made of celestial bronze. The metal is forged by the Cyclopes, tempered in the heart of Mount Etna, cooled in the river Lethe. By itself, it's deadly to monsters, to any creature from the underworld, provided they don't kill you first. But the blade will pass through mortals like an illusion. They simply are not important enough for the blade to kill. And I should warn you, as a demigod, you can be killed by either celestial or normal weapons. You are twice as vulnerable. Chiron explained. That sucks. Naruto complained. Good to know. Percy said. Percy, recap the pen. Naruto squeezed the hilt. The boys did as they were told, and the blades returned to their original pen forms. After that, Percy kept his pen in his pocket while Naruto stowed his pen away in his pouch. Percy looked nervous. You better not lose that magic item, Percy. Your pen's back at Yancey never lasted more than 2 days. Naruto joked. Shut up, fish cake. Percy teased to try to get back at the blonde. Actually you can't, Chiron said. What? Percy and Naruto asked. You can't lose the pen, Chiron explained. It is enchanted. It will always reappear in your pocket. Try it. Percy was unsure, but he threw his pen away anyway and watched it disappear in the grass. It may take a few moments, Chiron told Percy. Now check your pocket. He patted his pocket. His expression lightened when he felt the pen in his pocket. Awesome. Naruto praised. Okay, that's extremely cool, Percy admitted. But what if a mortal sees me pulling out a sword? Missed, Percy. Naruto said. Missed? Percy asked. Yes, Percy. You should read Homer's Iliad. It mentioned the stuff a lot. Chiron nodded. Whenever divine or monstrous elements mix with the mortal world, they generate mist, which obscures the vision of humans. You will see things just as they are, being a half-blood, but humans will interpret things quite differently. Remarkable, really, the lengths to which humans will go to fit things into their version of reality. Percy felt he was ready for his quest, but he had one last question. He asked about the immortality of the gods and the times before their rule. Naruto and Chiron narrated the stories from the books explaining his questions. They also gave some advice to Percy for his quest. After their conversation, the boys made their way to SUV. Chiron raised his bow in salute to send off the quest goers. Manhattan. 10 miles of driving passed and they made it to the highway. Along the way, Percy made a comment about not having any monster attacks so far. This, of course, prompted an argument from the two which escalated to an argument about the godly parents. In the front seat, Argus smiled. He didn't say anything, but one blue eye on the back of his neck winked. By the time they got to Queens, traffic slowed them down. At sunset, they made it to Manhattan, but it started to rain. Argus dropped them down at the Greyhound station on the Upper East Side, not far from Sally and Gabe's apartment. Something caught Naruto and Percy's eyes. Taped to a mailbox was a soggy flyer with both of their pictures on it. Have you seen these boys? Percy and Naruto looked at each other with wide eyes. They seemed to be thinking of the same thing. Oh shit. Before any of their companions could see, Naruto ripped the flyer and burned with a simple fire jutsu. Argus unloaded their bags, made sure they got our bus tickets, and then drove away, the eye on the back of his hand opening to watch them as he pulled out of the parking lot. Percy was looking at their old apartment's direction. Grover caught him doing this, so he asked, "You want to know why she married him, Percy?" Percy stared at him. "Were you reading my mind or something? Just your emotions?" He shrugged. "Guess I forgot to tell you satyrs can do that. About Percy, it has something to do with Percy's heritage, huh?" Naruto asked, hearing Grover's earlier question. "Your mom married Gabe for you," Grover told Percy. "You guys call him smelly, but you've got no idea. The guy has this aura. Yuck. I can smell him from here. I can smell traces of him on you, and you haven't been near him for a week." "Thanks," Percy said. "Where's the nearest shower?" "I doubt the shower would work." Naruto chuckled dryly. "You should be grateful, Percy. Your stepfather smells so repulsively human he could mask the presence of any demigod. As soon as I took a whiff inside his Camaro, I knew, Gabe has been covering your scent for years. If you hadn't lived with him every summer, you probably would have been found by monsters a long time ago. Your mom stayed with him to protect you. She was a smart lady. She must have loved you a lot to put up with that guy if that makes you feel any better. She's just plain awesome," Naruto added. The rain kept coming down as the demigods were talking. Eventually, they got restless, so they decided to play hacky sack with one of Grover's apples. Naruto got hungry, so he went to the nearest convenience store to get something to eat. Inside the store, Naruto got some food for his friends. As he was about to pay, he saw something that made him break into a mischievous grin. He added it to the stuff he bought and went to pay. "So, how do I send this?" he thought. Naruto got back to his friends as soon as the game ended. Percy tossed the apple toward Grover and it got too close to his mouth. In one mega goat bite, our hacky sack disappeared, core, stem, and all. Grover blushed. He tried to apologize, but his friends were too busy cracking up. Naruto even blew out the soda in his mouth when he saw what Grover did. Finally the bus came. As the group stood in line to board, Grover started looking around, sniffing the air like he smelled his favorite school cafeteria delicacy, enchiladas. "What is it?" Percy asked. "I don't know," he said tensely. "Maybe it's nothing." Naruto sniffed the air too. "Kinda smells like Mrs. Dodd's or something." When Percy heard this, he started looking over his shoulder as well, paranoid of what might come. Plus, he wasn't too keen on meeting his old math teacher again. After a few minutes of waiting in line, they finally got on board the bus, and found seats at the back of the bus. Everyone stowed their bags, except for Naruto. After the incident with the Minotaur, he wasn't taking any chances. This time, even Annabeth got nervous as well. She was repeatedly slapping her New York Yankees cap on her knee. As the last passengers got on, Annabeth squeezed Naruto's hand. Naruto. An old lady had just boarded the bus. She wore a crumpled velvet dress, lace gloves, and a shapeless orange knit hat that shadowed her face, and she carried a big paisley purse. When she tilted her head up, her black eyes glittered. It was Mrs. Dodd's. Older, more withered, but definitely the same evil face. Percy scrunched down in his seat. Behind her came two more old ladies, one in a green hat, one in a purple hat. Otherwise they looked exactly like Mrs. Dodd's same gnarled hands, paisley handbags, wrinkled velvet dresses. Triplet demon grandmothers. You had to jinx it, huh, Percy? Naruto complained. Grover looked like he was about to faint when he saw them board the bus. They sat in the front row, right behind the driver. The two on the aisle crossed their legs over the walkway, making an X. It was casual enough, but it sent a clear message: nobody leaves. Looks like your math teacher is back, Annabeth said. The bus pulled out of the station, and headed through the slick streets of Manhattan. She didn't stay dead long, Percy said, trying to keep his voice from quivering. I thought you said they could be dispelled for a lifetime. I said if you're lucky, Annabeth said. You're obviously not. All three of them, Grover managed to whimper. Die immortals. It's okay, Annabeth said, obviously thinking hard. The Furies. The three worst monsters from the underworld. No problem. No problem. We'll just slip out the windows. Easier said than done, Naruto said. Plus, they won't open. A back exit, she suggested. There isn't one. Grover shook his head. By that time, the bus was on 9th Avenue, heading for the Lincoln Tunnel. They won't attack us with witnesses around, will they? Percy asked hopefully. Mortals don't have good eyes, Annabeth reminded him. Their brains can only process what they see through the mist. They'll see three old ladies killing us, won't they? Percy said mournfully. Annabeth thought about it. Hard to say. But we can't count on mortals for help. Maybe an emergency exit in the roof. The bus hit the Lincoln Tunnel, and it went dark except for the running lights down the aisle. It was eerily quiet without the sound of the rain. Mrs. Dodds got up. In a flat voice, as if she'd rehearsed it, she announced to the whole bus, I need to use the restroom. So do I, said the second sister. So do I, said the third sister. They all started coming down the aisle. Heads up, Naruto warned. Here they come. I didn't ask for this. Why is it like my fault? Percy thought as he watched three old ladies who looked like Mrs. Dodds made their way down the aisle of the bus. Clearly they were after him. He and Annabeth had argued in the car about the bad luck of talking about no monsters attacking during a mission. It made him rethink everything. Was it really my fault? He was broken out of his thoughts when Naruto spoke up. Heads up, Naruto said softly. Here they come. The bus was completely silent as the bus drove through the Lincoln Tunnel. I've got it, Annabeth exclaimed as she thought of an idea. Percy, take my hat. What? Percy asked. You're the one they want. Turn invisible and go up the aisle. Let them pass you. Maybe you can get to the front and get away. Annabeth explained. But you guys, Percy protested. He really didn't want to leave his friends behind. There's an outside chance they might not notice us, Annabeth said. You're a son of one of the big three. Your smell might be overpowering. Naruto studied his friend. His friend clearly didn't want to go with this plan. Hold it. He won't go with the plan, not when our lives are in danger. We don't have, Annabeth tried to argue. I know Annabeth, but we have to do it this way, so Percy would go with it. Naruto quickly explained what he had in mind to the group. This time Percy was more willing to go with it. You got this, Grover said. Go. Percy's hands trembled as he took the cap from Annabeth. He put it on. As soon as the cap was on his head, he disappeared from view and made his way to the front of the bus. Naruto and his two other companions watched as the old woman who they knew as Mrs. Dodd stopped walking and sniffed the air. She looked at an empty seat like she sensed something there. Oh no, Annabeth said with a worried tone. She can still sense him. Naruto placed his hand on top of Annabeth's. It was a silent message that everything would be okay. Mrs. Dodd shrugged it off and continued walking to Naruto and his friends. This time, they began to slowly change into the true forms. Their faces were still the same, but their bodies had shriveled into leathery brown hag bodies with bats' wings and hands and feet like gargoyle claws. Their handbags had turned into fiery whips. The Furies surrounded the three, lashing their whips, hissing, "Where is it? Where?" The other people on the bus were screaming, cowering in their seats. He's not here, Annabeth yelled. He's gone. Why yeah, Grover said, trying to act brave. You don't want any trouble, Naruto threatened. Annabeth drew her bronze knife. Naruto pulled out a kunai from the pouch on his leg. Grover grabbed a tin can from his snack bag and prepared to throw it. The Furies were about to lunge, when the bus swerved, causing the three Furies to smack into the side of the bus along with the other passengers. Hey! The driver yelled. Hey! Whoa! The driver was wrestling an unseen force for control of the steering wheel. The bus slammed against the side of the tunnel, grinding metal, and throwing sparks a mile behind them. The vehicle careened out of the Lincoln Tunnel and back into the rainstorm. People and monsters tossed around the bus, cars plowed aside like bowling pins. Somehow, the driver found an exit. They shot off the highway, through half a dozen traffic lights, and ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads. On the left, there were woods. On the right was the Hudson River. The driver seemed to be veering toward the river. Percy was at the driver's seat, still unseen by the passengers on the bus. Percy pulled the emergency brake, and the bus wailed and spun in a full circle, then crashed into the trees. Emergency lights from the bus flashed on, and the door flew open. The driver and the passengers were all scared now. The driver was the first one to run out of the bus, followed by the passengers. Percy had to step into the driver's seat, so he won't be run over. Unfortunately for our heroes, the Furies were already beginning to regain their balance. Before anyone could react, Naruto lunged at the Furies and plunged his kunai on the Fury who they knew as Mrs. Dodds. The monster exploded into golden dust. The two remaining Furies saw what happened and they snarled. They were eyeing Naruto, preparing to attack him for what he did to their sister. They must have realized that attacking the blonde was unwise. Instead, they turned around to face Grover and Annabeth brandishing their whips ready to attack. Just then, Percy took off Annabeth's invisibility cap and yelled, "Hey!" That got the Furies' attention. The monsters turned, bearing the yellow fangs at Percy. They stalked up the aisle flicking her whip. Every time she did, red flames danced along the barbed leather. "Perseus Jackson," Mrs. Dodds said, in an accent that was definitely from somewhere farther south than Georgia. "You have offended the gods. You shall die." "I liked you better as a math teacher," Percy retorted. She growled. Annabeth and Grover moved up behind the Furies cautiously, looking for an opening. Percy took the ballpoint pen out of his pocket and uncapped it. Riptide elongated into a shimmering double-edged sword. The Furies hesitated. "Submit now," one of the Furies hissed. "And you will not suffer eternal torment." "Nice try," Percy told her. The other Fury raised her whip and lashed it towards Percy's sword hand. Her companion dove at Percy. Percy yelled in pain. He felt like his hand was wrapped in molten lead, but he managed not to drop his sword. "Ow!" he yelled. "Ow! Hot! Hot!" Naruto kicked the lunging Fury towards Annabeth and Grover. "Take care of her," he yelled. Annabeth jumped on the Fury's back. The Fury kicked, clawed, hissed and bit, trying to shake her off, but she held on, though she dropped her dagger. Grover was in the corner of the bus chucking tin cans at the Fury she was riding. Some of the cans were occasionally hitting Annabeth, slowly getting on her nerve. Annabeth smacked the Fury on the head, and then yelled, "Grover! My knife!" "Gee, got it," Grover said, shaking the fear out of his system. Grover dropped down to the ground trying to find the knife. He tried looking under the chairs, under some of the rubble. He found it. "Hey Annabeth, I found it," Grover yelled. "Throw it," she yelled back. Grover threw the knife towards Annabeth. The younger blonde smacked the Fury again and caught the knife, plunging it on its neck. The Fury exploded into golden dust. On Naruto and Percy's end, the blonde sliced through the whip, tying up Percy's hand. Percy reeled for a moment, nursing his hand. The Fury growled. "Zeus will destroy you," she promised. "Hades will have your soul. Brachas mis vesimini," Percy yelled. Naruto understood this somehow. He tried so hard to stifle his laughter, but failed miserably. "What the hell was that, Percy?" Percy's face reddened. "Shut up. That came out wrong." Seeing this as an opening, the Fury attacked Percy. Naruto's expression changed when he saw this, but immediately changed again when he saw him handling the situation. Fortunately, Percy managed to sidestep and smack the Fury with the hilt of his sword. Percy charged the monster, giving it no time to recover. Before the Fury could get up, Percy swung his sword, and it exploded into golden dust like a piñata, killing the last monster. The group got to celebrate their victory and check each other for injuries. "I see you guys were trained well at camp," Naruto said. "Well, our teachers back at camp are awesome," Annabeth said. Grover put his head down. Naruto saw this and put a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, Grover. Fear gets the best of us, even me." Grover looked up. "Even you. How? Naruto's story and their celebrations were cut short when the bus was shaken by thunder. Oh, Percy said. That's not good. Get out, Annabeth yelled. Now. The group rushed outside and found the other passengers wandering around in a daze, arguing with the driver, or running around in circles yelling, "We're going to die." A Hawaiian-shirted tourist with a camera snapped Percy and Naruto's photograph. Our bags. Grover realized. We left our BOOOOOM. The windows of the bus exploded as the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater in the roof. This is not good. The authorities will arrive any time soon, Annabeth said. The others nodded, and they plunged into the woods as the rain poured down, the bus in flames behind them, and nothing but darkness ahead. Entering the forest gave Naruto some relief. He was in his mother's element, making feel right at home. Our group of demigods were walking through the woods along the New Jersey riverbank, the glow of New York City making the night sky yellow behind them, and the smell of the Hudson reeking in their noses. All along the way, Grover was shivering and braying from fear. He kept muttering to himself, "Three kindly ones. All three at once." Annabeth kept pulling him along, "Come on. The farther away we get the better." They trudged through the forest across muddy ground. They were still in shock about the lightning striking the bus. The sound still ringed in their ears. Percy said, breaking the occasional silence, "All our money was back there. Our food and clothes. Everything. What do we do now?" "Well, maybe if you hadn't decided to jump into the fight," Annabeth argued, but Percy didn't let her finish. "What did you want me to do? Let you get killed? You didn't need to protect me, Percy. I know how to protect myself. Plus, if anything went wrong, Naruto was there with us." "You sound like an old married couple," Grover commented. "Shut up, goat boy. We do not," Annabeth and Percy yelled, not liking what Grover said. "Come on guys, arguing won't get us anywhere," Naruto said, breaking up the argument. Grover brayed mournfully. "Tin cans, a perfectly good bag of tin cans." The rain turned the soil at their feet muddy. They sloshed through the muddy ground through nasty trees that smelled like sour laundry. Grover even had to remove his fake feet and carry them the whole way since they kept getting stuck to the mud. After a few minutes, a smile made its way to Naruto's lips when he saw Annabeth fall into line next to Percy. "Look, her voice faltered. "I appreciate your coming back for us, okay? That was really brave. We're a team, right?" She was silent for a few more steps. "It's just that if you died, aside from the fact that it would really suck for you, it would mean the quest was over. This may be my only chance to see the real world." The thunderstorm had finally let up. The glow of the city behind them, leaving them in almost total darkness. "You haven't left Camp Half-Blood since you were 7? Percy asked. "No. Only short field trips. My dad, the history professor. Yeah. It didn't work out for me living at home. I mean, Camp Half-Blood is my home." She was rushing her words out now, as if she were afraid somebody might try to stop her. "At camp you train and train. And that's all cool and everything, but the real world is where the monsters are. That's where you learn whether you're any good or not." Naruto, who was listening to their conversation, commented, "You're pretty good with that knife." "Really? You think so?" Annabeth said, her eyes lightening up after hearing Naruto praise her. "Yeah," Percy agreed. "Anybody who can piggyback ride a Fury is okay by me." Annabeth was smiling now. Getting compliments from her friends definitely made her day. "You know," she said, "maybe I should tell you something funny back on the bus." Whatever she wanted to say was interrupted by a shrill toot toot toot, like the sound of an owl being tortured. "Hey, my reed pipes still work," Grover cried. "If I could just remember a find path song, we could get out of these woods." He puffed out a few notes, but the tune still sounded suspiciously like Hilary Duff. Instead of finding a path, Percy immediately slammed into a tree and got a nice size knot on his head. Naruto laughed at the expense of his friend. After tripping and cursing and generally feeling miserable, mostly for Percy, for another mile or so, the group started to see light up ahead, the colors of a neon sign. They could even smell food, fried, greasy, excellent food. A grumbling sound was heard. Percy let out a laugh of embarrassment. "Man, I sure could use a cheeseburger," Percy said. His friends laughed at him. Then, another grumbling sound came from the rest of the group, which prompted everyone to laugh all together. "I guess we all need a cheeseburger. Though I prefer ramen, I'll take whatever I can." Naruto commented. I wish they have other food other than cheeseburgers. Grover said. Let's see. Annabeth said. They kept walking until they found themselves at a deserted two-lane road through the trees. On the other side was a closed-down gas station, a tattered billboard for a 1990s movie, and one open business, which was the source of the neon light and the good smell of fat and greasy food. Unfortunately, the building they saw was not a fast food restaurant as they had hoped. Instead, they came across one of those weird roadside curio shops that sell lawn flamingos and wooden Indians and cement grizzly bears and stuff like that. The main building was a long, low warehouse, surrounded by acres of statuary. The neon sign above the gate was impossible for the demigods to read. To them, it read as, at new mesgderan gamen meprouim. What the heck does that say? Percy asked. I don't know, Annabeth said. Grover translated, Auntie M's Garden Gnome Emporium. Flanking the entrance, as advertised, were two cement garden gnomes, ugly bearded little runts, smiling and waving, as if they were about to get their picture taken. I got a bad feeling about this, Naruto said. Percy crossed the street, following the smell of the hamburgers which got stronger when they got to the road. Hey, Grover warned. Percy, where are you going? Naruto asked. The lights are on inside, Annabeth said. Maybe it's open. Snack bar, Percy said wistfully. Snack bar, Annabeth agreed. Are you too crazy? Grover said. This place is weird. Not you too, Annabeth, Naruto complained. For Percy, I'm not surprised, but you. Grover trotted along to follow the two who went ahead, leaving Naruto at the other side of the road. Naruto's stomach grumbled. He sighed, I guess it wouldn't hurt to try. He went on to follow his teammates, ignoring the nagging feeling telling him not to go because he too was hungry. The front lot was a forest of statues, cement animals, cement children, even a cement satyr playing the pipes, which gave Grover the creeps. Blah ha ha, he bleated. Looks like my Uncle Ferdinand. They stopped at the warehouse door. Don't knock, Grover pleaded. I smell monsters. Your nose is clogged up from the Furies, Annabeth told him. All I smell is burgers. Aren't you hungry? Meat, he said scornfully. I'm a vegetarian. You eat cheese enchiladas and aluminum cans, Percy reminded him. Those are vegetables. Come on, let's leave. These statues are looking at me. Naruto sniffed the air as well. Why does it smell like the reptile section of the zoo? Nonsense, Percy said. It's just burgers in there. The two younger demigods ignored Grover's plea. Naruto, once again, shrugged it off. Clearly, his hunger was clouding his normally on-point judgment. Why? Grover complained. Even Naruto is. They were about knock when the door creaked open, and standing in front of the group was what they assumed was a tall Middle Eastern woman. She wore a long black gown that covered everything but her hands, and her head was completely veiled. Her eyes glinted behind a curtain of black gauze. Her coffee-colored hands looked old, but well manicured and elegant. She might have been a grandmother who had once been a beautiful lady in her younger years. Her accent sounded vaguely Middle Eastern, too. She said, Children, it is too late to be out all alone. Where are your parents? There. Annabeth started to say. We're orphans, Percy managed to blurt out. Orphans. The woman said. The word sounded alien in her mouth. But, my dears, surely not. We got separated from our caravan, Percy said. Our circus caravan. The ringmaster told us to meet him at the gas station if we got lost, but he may have forgotten, or maybe he meant a different gas station. Anyway, we're lost. Is that food I smell? Annabeth looked at Naruto. Clearly, she was not happy at Percy's alibi. Naruto just mouthed, just go with it, as he held his growling stomach. Annabeth just face-palmed. Oh, my dears, the woman said. You must come in, poor children. I am Auntie M. Go straight through to the back of the warehouse, please. There is a dining area. The four thanked her and went inside. Annabeth walked beside Percy and muttered, Circus caravan. Seriously. Always have a strategy, right? Percy said. She rolled her eyes at Percy, your head is full of kelp. The warehouse was filled with more statues, people in all different poses, wearing all different outfits and with different expressions on their faces. Some of the statues had a scared look on their faces, which was off-putting to the group to say the least. But, those statues were the least of the demigods' worries. All they were thinking now was the hunger they were feeling. Only Grover was not mesmerized by the smell of the food because he didn't eat meat. Instead, he was whimpering to himself, clearly scared. Eventually, they made it to the back of the warehouse, which housed a fast food counter with a grill, a soda fountain, a pretzel heater, and a nacho cheese dispenser. Everything you could want, plus a few steel picnic tables out front. Please, sit down, Auntie Em said. Awesome, Percy said. Grover said reluctantly, we don't have any money, Mom. Before Percy could jab him in the ribs, Auntie Em said, no, children. No money. This is a special case, yes. It is my treat, for such nice orphans. Naruto's stomach seemed to growl even louder. Sorry, he said. Auntie Em smiled, you stay put, children. This will only take a while. Thank you, Mom, Annabeth said. Auntie Em stiffened, as if Annabeth had done something wrong, but then the old woman relaxed just as quickly. Quite all right, Annabeth, she said. You have such beautiful gray eyes, child. Auntie Em disappeared behind the snack counter and started cooking. Before the group of demigods knew it, she'd brought them plastic trays heaped with double cheeseburgers, vanilla shakes, and XXL servings of French fries. Percy was halfway through his burger before he remembered to breathe. Naruto was just finishing his second burger and about to start on his third burger while eating his fries 3 at a time. Annabeth slurped her shake. Grover picked at the fries, and eyed the tray's waxed paper liner as if he might go for that too, but he still looked too nervous to eat. Just then, Naruto and Grover looked at each other when their ears picked up on a sound they weren't expecting to hear. What's that hissing noise? It was Grover who asked. Percy tried to listen into what Grover was talking about, but to no avail. Annabeth just shook her head. Hissing. Auntie Em asked. Perhaps you hear the deep fryer oil. You have keen ears, Grover. I take vitamins for my ears. That's admirable, she said. But please, relax. Naruto was halfway through his third burger when he realized that first, Auntie Em somehow knew Annabeth's and Grover's names, and secondly, he never saw her remove her headdress ever since, even when she was cooking. He also noticed that she was watching them eat with her fingers interlaced. It definitely unnerved him. So, to decrease his uncomfortable feeling of being watched, he tried to make small talk. So, you sell gnomes? Naruto said, trying to sound interested. Oh, yes, Auntie Em said. And animals. And people. Anything for the garden. Custom orders. Statuary is very popular, you know. A lot of business on this road. Not so much, no. Since the highway was built, most cars, they do not go this way now. I must cherish every customer I get. Percy's expression changed. He was having an unsettling feeling that someone was watching him. He turned. Instead of seeing someone watching, he saw a statue of a young girl holding an Easter basket. The detail was incredible, much better than you see in most garden statues. But something was wrong with her face. It looked as if she was startled or even terrified. Auntie Em said sadly. You notice some of my creations do not turn out well. They are marred. They do not sell. The face is the hardest to get right. Always the face. You make these statues yourself? Percy asked. Oh, yes, I have some help actually, from my 2 sisters. We are inseparable, you know. She explained. Annabeth had stopped eating. She sat forward and said, 2 sisters. Yes, we stayed together ever since that accident. It's a terrible story, not one for children, really. Auntie Em said. You see, Annabeth, a bad woman was jealous of me, long ago, when I was young. I had a boyfriend, you know, and this bad woman was determined to break us apart. My sisters stayed by my side defending me. Unfortunately, they too shared my bad fortune. Percy wasn't sure what she meant, but he felt bad for her. His eyelids kept getting heavier, his full stomach making him sleepy. Poor old lady. Who would want to hurt somebody so nice? He mumbled. Percy. Annabeth was shaking Percy to get his attention. Maybe we should go. I mean, the ringmaster will be waiting. Naruto was sipping on his shake now. Now that he had his fill, he was starting to get back to his normal self. Around that time, he heard the hissing sound again, much louder this time. He took a look at Grover and saw that he picked it up too. He gave him a look to drop it and that they'd figure it out. This just made Grover even more nervous. He started eating the waxed paper off the tray. Hearing the hissing sound again definitely did not help, nor did Naruto's expression telling him to drop it. Such beautiful gray eyes, Auntie Em told Annabeth again. Yes, it has been a long time since I've seen grey eyes like those. She reached out as if to stroke Annabeth's cheek, but Annabeth stood up abruptly. We really should go. Yes. Grover swallowed the waxed paper he was chewing and stood up. The ringmaster is waiting. Right. Yeah. Naruto added. We still need to figure out which gas station the old man is waiting at. Percy, on the other hand, looked like he didn't want to leave. Having his fill seemed to have the opposite effect on him. He wanted to stay for a while. Please, dears, Auntie M pleaded. I so rarely get to be with children. Before you go, won't you at least sit for a pose? A pose? Annabeth asked warily. A photograph. I will use it to model a new statue set. Children are so popular, you see. Everyone loves children. I don't think we can, Mom. Come on, Percy, Annabeth said, shifting her weight from foot to foot. Sure we can, Percy said with an irritated tone. It's just a photo, Annabeth. What's the harm? He's not seeing Annabeth's cues. Naruto face-palmed mentally. Percy's companions didn't like the idea, but followed Auntie M anyway, seeing that they were moving out back to the front door, into the garden of statues they passed a while back. Auntie M directed them to a park bench next to the stone satyr. Now, she said, I'll just position you correctly. The young girl in the middle, I think, and the two young gentlemen on either side. You, Naruto, why don't you stand behind them? Don't you think it's a little dark for a photoshoot? Naruto remarked. Oh, there is enough light, Auntie M said. Enough for us to see each other, yes. Where's your camera? Grover asked. Oh, just sit tight my dears while I go and get it. Auntie M said. She left them there to go get the camera. That gave them some time to talk among themselves. Grover took the chance to study at the statue beside them. Percy. Naruto scolded. What were you thinking? What? Percy said. Don't you see she's just a sweet old woman? Naruto sighed. Percy, don't you find this weird? Annabeth asked. Come on guys. She was super nice to us. She even fed us. Percy protested. On their way there, Naruto and Annabeth were mentally connecting the dots. Annabeth decided to bring it up. Guys, Annabeth said. I think I know who she is. What? Percy tried to say something but Naruto didn't give him a chance to. Yeah. Naruto nodded. The stone statues, this place smelling like the reptile section of the zoo, the hissing noises. She even said she has two sisters. What are you guys talking about? Percy tried to say but was cut off again. A look of horror made it to Grover's face. Guys, this statue is my Uncle Ferdinand. He was killed by. Grover didn't get to finish. They heard Auntie M approaching. This time she was not alone. What do we do? Annabeth asked frantically in a whisper. We improvise. Naruto whispered quickly. To be continued. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.